Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we're going to be going over the little crate that some of you may have just received in your inbox. And this was because if you filled out a questionnaire that did pop up on the screen, they were giving you a reward of a Paragon mod, and it wasn't just any Paragon mod, it was a choice Paragon mod. Attack set seems to be the set that all the mods are going to be. But there are some very nice actual selection of mods in here that you can choose in the crate. And the info was sent to our inbox in game, so it was available to everybody, and it said, "We'd like to know your thoughts on Rick Grimes. Please help us out by filling out this quick survey on Rick Grimes. All players who complete the survey by September 24th, Sunday, 12 PM Pacific time, will receive a Paragon mod choice box." This sounded extremely good for me. And I did fill this out, but I didn't really get much information to put across because it asked me how many copies of Rick I got, and I said 5 because I obviously got all the copies, and that was pretty much it. It was just like, okay, thanks. I think it was more for people who didn't have all 5 copies or who didn't get actually want to pull for him. It was more a question of answering questions for those people. So I'll just do a quick breakdown on my ideas on why potentially Rick didn't do that well. I would have assumed that they did this because Rick maybe didn't perform as well as they had expected. And I would say probably one of the biggest things was the fact that it was another leader that obviously people would be able to pull for. There's been quite a few attack leaders recently, which is obviously nice to have a selection, but he was an attack leader for an allegiance that didn't really add anything. If he was an attack leader for an allegiance that already had really good damage dealers in it, then I think he had a better possibility of being more successful, because those damage dealers potentially would have got bonuses from being in an allegiance with him. Pretty much as simple as that. I think his kit is nice, and I think maybe it's just if you're pulling for characters consistently or not, you're going to be quite selective, and that leader thing does come back to it. Even though it has got normalized on that, he's got normalized in his kit, he could potentially work extremely well with the Warrior Champions character Shiva. I think it's going to be quite nice combo there. I think maybe potentially some people are just going to be missing out. It's simple as that. Maybe on the second time around, people will kind of get an idea of how much, how useful this character can be. But maybe sort of seemed a bit too one-dimensional for someone like a Hina team. But I think he can obviously be used in quite a lot of places, and you should see me using him in the coming Warrior Champions against some teams for sure. So that's just a little bit of an idea potentially why he wasn't as successful for some people. The fact that it's Rick Grimes, obviously, he's a great character in The Walking Dead, so I don't think that was holding him back at all. Sometimes that can be a factor though. Now when it comes to the crate that we received, I'm talking about this one here, and we did get a big selection of the mods. I'm just going to go over each mod and just talk about what I think would be a good pick from this one. If you're not 100% certain where to go, you could obviously just hold on to the crate until you've got a better idea, but it is just one Paragon mod. It is better to actually claim this earlier to utilize it, to get the bonuses from it, especially if you've not got a lot of these Paragon mods. So going over the crate in a bit finer detail, we'll obviously click choose, and when you click choose, you can click the eye next to each mod to see what the mod actually is. We'll go over the 4 on the left first because they're all the same. There is the attack versus fast, which you just saw. There is the attack versus alert. There's the attack versus strong. And there's the attack versus tough. This is 70% attack versus. This is a really good mod. If you don't have these already, these are going to massively improve the amount of damage output that you're going to be able to do. You can kind of gauge the kind of characters on defense teams. There's a lot of alert characters on defense teams, quite a lot of fast characters on defense teams as well. So fast and alert could be some good picks if you don't have too many of these attack versus. Attack set obviously works on every single damage dealer in the game. However, some characters utilize crit damage better than just pure attack. So a lot of the time attack set is a bit less utilized. A character, however, that does use attack set extremely well is going to be Gold Mythic Sophia, and you could obviously pick up an attack versus on her and just slot it in her hands. The fact that she has become free to play, she is in the Mythic market, I think a lot of people will probably be picking up an attack versus and putting it on her if they didn't already have 2 attack versus on the character. My Sophia has attack versus alert, and attack versus fast, she naturally gets better damage versus tough characters. Strong characters, I only really have an issue with strong characters in the Denise team, and I just do not use Sophia against that team. I use a different team. It's pretty much as simple as that. So I would say this is definitely 100% a fine pick, but I would say alert and fast are probably the primary ones when it comes to what you want to pick. You know, fast damage is against all the fast characters out there, but it helps against Jesus, and Jesus is still everywhere. And then obviously alert is really good. It helps against, you know, the pretty defensive alert characters out there. Characters even like Nor, who's still, you know, heavily around, but also the more recently released characters like Kyle and stuff like this, who need massive damage to be able to take them down. A lot of these characters have defense buffs as well, so you need that extra damage, that extra punch to really get through that. So the 4 on the left, absolutely fine picks, definitely fine to fall back on. The more like niche picks, potentially, it can be based on your team. We'll start with the middle top. I think this is attack, it's going to be actually taunt resist. Now on attack, taunt is actually reasonably a big deal. There's a reasonable amount of taunt on defense teams, so having taunt resist is actually pretty good. However, we'll go on to another mod soon, and you can take advantage of that on an attack team. It really depends on how you want to set up your attack team, if you want to utilize attack while taunted or not. If you don't, then this isn't terrible. You know, there is, you know, a lot of characters that taunt off of turn 1 against damage roll characters, against support characters, so you can potentially resist that, which is obviously, you know, beneficial. But like you say, you can kind of cheese it and get a benefit from actually being taunted if you have something like focus, or even with your basic attack you could just do extra damage with what I think is the next mod, which is this one, which is attack while taunted, which is very good. I think this goes up to 155% attack while taunted, which is really high. The resist mod goes up to 90% resist, again very, very high, but I think this is better than the actual taunt resist. It's probably better to be taunted and then do extra damage than it is to resist the taunt and not do extra damage in a lot of cases, but it is mainly based on your team setup. If you don't have any focus, then, you know, taunt resist is absolutely fine. Then the next mod is going to be exhaust resist on attack set. Now I also use this on my Sophia, because only if you come up against medics on defense teams you can get run over by exhaust early on in the fight. But as long as you don't come up against medics, she will generally be able to cleanse any exhaust with her signature move, so it's not as much of a problem. So this mod's kind of okay. It really depends on the character. If you're coming up against Denise teams and you specifically need a little bit of resist on your damage roll character, then this could actually be pretty good there. The next mod is going to be Confuse Resist on attack. This one's actually pretty decent, but I think Confuse is probably more useful on defense teams, so I wouldn't say this is probably like top tier. Confuse Resist isn't as big a deal when it comes to attacking, but it is nice. 90% resist. If you are having issues with Confuse, this is obviously great. The wrong character gets confused on your attack team, someone like Raven, and she can just blow up one of your own characters, decap them, and just make it a little bit more problematic to win quickly, if at all. The next mods, moving along, is the Bleed. I would say this is probably the one that you should avoid the most, but it is actually really nice because it gets, I think, like, I want to say like 8.5% or something crazy like that bleed, which is really nice for like faction assault, but maybe a little bit of a bonus for you know, attacking in raids and stuff, but it isn't as effective as the other mods we've already seen. If you wanted to add extra damage, it's definitely better to go for an attack versus mod than a bleed mod. The next and last mod is the effectively newest mod in the game. As much as it's been around for quite a while, you probably have less good days resist than you have of other resists, because this was introduced, I believe, during the Platinum mod era. So basically you'll have a lot of Confuse, Taunt, Impair and Stun resist, and you might only have a handful of days resist, and this is obviously going to have less chance of getting good rolls, being on the right set. And this is actually pretty decent if you do plan to come up against teams with Alpha lead. Alpha does reduce this days resist down to 50%, but at least it's a 50-50 chance you will actually resist the days on her kit, which is obviously nice indeed. So there's my thoughts on the mods. I'm not 100% certain where I'm going to go just yet. I might go for the days resist. I might fall back on one of the attack versus. It's probably going to be one of those two, I'm not 100% certain. I'll probably decide during my stream where I mod my entire roster and I'm like, damn, I really could use another attack versus right now. Oh yeah, I've got that crate. But I think you can't go wrong with an attack versus as long as you're putting in the hands of a character that obviously needs attack over crit damage. That's great. I think this is obviously a really nice way of doing things. Maybe they'll do questionnaires like this every month or something. That would be fantastic, honestly. But do tell me what Paragon mod you plan to go for in this crate. That is the end of my video, guys. I want to thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.